Welcome back to Building Character, where we figure out how to play as your favorite fictional characters in Dungeons and Dragons. Remember to like and subscribe to resist the darkness next time you play. Maybe. Today we're building Terra, our second member of the Wayfinder trio, and debatably the saddest member. He's in competition with Aqua, of course, but when the happiest ending is a 13-year coma, you know your group probably didn't win. Let's start off with our goals for this build. First, we gotta get a Keyblade, a magical sword that we can use to unlock cards and deal magical damage to whatever your DM decides the unversed are. Next, we need an earth-shattering kaboom, the ability to bring the sword down so hard it shakes the ground. Finally, we need to maybe give in to the darkness. Just a little bit though, like dipping a toe in to test the waters. Or a full-on cannonball cowabunga, it's time for darkness. For stats, we'll be using the standard point array from the player's handbook. Roll for stats if you want, just watch out for your strength and charisma. They need to be high for multi-classing. Strength will be number 1. You're much better at physical skills than that whole magic-y, wagic-y stuff. Charisma next. There's not actually a way to make earthquakes with a weapon in D&D, so we'll need some spells to actually pull that off and make it something that's useful. Constitution after that, we'll need it to maintain concentration on our command styles later once we get the good ones. Follow that up with dexterity. I'd say you're rocking medium armor most of the game until the end when you go full on plate, but you don't really need to bust that out, just dunk on Captain Hook. Intelligence is a bit low, you're not really the brains of the operation, but if Terra has a big weakness, it's gotta be wisdom. The dude meets people who are like, hey, I'm gonna do some evil stuff if you don't stop me, and he's like, I wonder if that's the bad guy. Terra is a human, though Earth Genasies exist, so do goblins. Use other races if you want, it's just not accurate. Variant humans get feats. The Great Weapon Master feat lets you donk extra hard with a two-handed weapon, sacrificing 5 from your attack roll to deal an extra 10 damage with your hit, and you can make a bonus action attack if you drop something to 0 or critically hit. This build starts off with 12 HP, meaning that this gives you the ability to insta-kill an evil version of yourself at level 1 with a high enough roll if you're using a greatsword, which deals 2d6 slashing damage. I'm gonna say your Keyblade is a greatsword. It's the biggest in the canon other than maybe a Sed. Am I ever gonna do the foretellers? I feel like that's too deep of a cut even for me. Bump your strength and your constitution with your 2 free points, take Arcana for your skill of choice, and build your own background for intimidation and investigation to aid you when you're scouting out the new worlds, even if you weren't supposed to. We'll kick things off as a Paladin. They're warriors of light, so it seems fitting for you. You get 2 skills from the Paladin list. Athletics and religion are what I'd go for. There isn't officially religion in Kingdom Hearts, but I feel like that's what you could use for understanding the lore, and Terra is educated enough in that sense. Speaking of senses, you get divine senses, letting you know if there are fiends, undead, or celestials within 60 feet of you, an amount of times per day equal to your charisma modifier. I don't know what your DM is going to call unversed or heartless, but I think fiends or undead could be good choices, or aberration. But you don't get to sense those, so push them towards the fiends and undead. You also get Lay on Hands, letting you heal a creature you touch with a pool of health equal to 5 times your paladin level as an action. You could also remove an effect of poison or disease by using 5 of the HP in the pool. You could use Cure, you could use Asuna, depends on what you need, but it's generally a good idea to have both in your command deck. Paladins get all their best stuff at level 2. First, you get a weapon style. Great Weapon Fighting lets you reroll 1s and 2s on damage die with two-handed weapons. That's pretty great with a great sword, since you're rolling 2 damage die instead of 1. You can also cast Paladin spells. Shield of Faith adds 2 to the AC of a creature you choose for 10 minutes, depending on your concentration, letting you summon the extra armor at will. My favorite Paladin spell is always Divine Smite, haha, funny joke. It's not technically a spell, but it uses your spell slots to add 2d8 radiant damage to a melee attack, and an extra d8 of damage to fiends or undead. Again, push your DM to classify the bad guys as fiend or undead. It'll be helpful for you taking out the baddies that you would never ever join because darkness is bad. Pranked! It's darkness time! Oathbreaker paladins are paladins that get a little darkness because their old master was trying to kill their best friend because he was a perfect being of light, which can fight against a pure being of darkness to create a Keyblade, but the key is spelled with an X instead of K-E-Y because it's more important to the lore in opening the true Kingdom Hearts. I would say Ericus could have explained that to you, but trying to do it myself made me realize that's more difficult than I thought. Oathbreakers can channel Divinity to control undead, which lets you dominate an undead that fails a wisdom saving throw of 8 plus your proficiency bonus and charisma modifier for 24 hours. They can't be of a challenge rating higher than your paladin level, but that's pretty busted and will hopefully let you create your own little dark buddy. Dreadful Aspect is probably more in character. It forces a wisdom saving throw on creatures of your choice within 30 feet of you, frightening them if they fail, making them a little bit worse at fighting you. Your Oath also gives you extra spells. Inflict Wounds is some pure darkness energy, dealing 3d10 necrotic damage to a creature with a melee spell attack. Nothing more complicated about that. If you wanted complicated, you probably chose Aqua. Let's be real. 4th level Paladins get an ability score improvement. Let's get our strength up higher. You're all about hitting hard and... well, honestly, that's the end of the list. You hit really hard. 5th level Paladins get an extra attack, letting you make 2 attacks instead of 1 with your action, and you can make them both great weapon attacks for some massive damage. You can also cast 2nd level spells, and Magic Weapon will make a weapon magical in terms of overcoming resistances and give you +1 to your attack and damage rolls, making that penalty from Great Weapon Master not as intense, while also increasing the damage. This lasts for an hour depending on your concentration, so don't dilly-dally, you got business to do. Now that we're hitting hard enough, I think it's time we got a little more magic. Just some though, not too much. 1st level sorcerers can choose a sorceress origin, and Divine Soul is for wimps. You don't need that. Darkness! Shadow sorcerers get Eyes of the Dark, giving you 120 feet of dark vision, and Strength of the Grave is a little once more, letting you make a charisma saving throw with a DC of 5 plus the damage you've taken when you take damage that would normally knock you out. If you pass, you drop to 1 HP instead, and can't use this again until you take a long rest. Weird thing, Paladins have proficiency with Wisdom and Charisma saving throws, not Strength for some reason, so you're actually pretty good at this now, and will be even better later. The reason we're using Sorcerer instead of something like Hexblade is for better cantrips. What could be better than Eldritch Blast? Firebolt, dealing 2d10 fire damage as a ranged spell attack. Ray of Frost, dealing 2d8 cold damage and reducing the target's movement speed by 10 as a ranged spell attack. Chill Touch, dealing 2d8 necrotic damage as a ranged spell attack and preventing the target from healing. And Shocking Grasp, dealing 2d8 lightning damage and preventing the target from taking reactions with a melee spell attack. None of those actually match the damage potential of Eldritch Blast, but they're more in character as they're basic elemental attacks that will scale up as you level up without requiring all that annoying command deck management. Remember, good and bad isn't measured with numbers in D&D, it's measured with character choices. For your 1st level spells, Earth Tremor forces a dexterity saving throw on creatures within 10 feet of you, dealing 1d6 bludgeoning damage when they fail and knocking them prone. That will give you advantage on follow-up melee attacks with your big old Keyblade bop. The jump spell triples the jump distance of a creature you choose for a minute if you need a little high jump. You're not always going to need mobility, but gosh darn it, it stinks when you don't have it and you do need it. We're also multi-classing spellcasters here. Check out page 165 of the Player's Handbook to figure out how many spell slots you have at any given level. But since you're dipping into Sorcerer, you're going to have more slots for smiting than a standard Paladin. Hoorah! 2nd level sorcerers get a Font of Magic with sorcery points you can use to recover spell slots at this level. You can also spend them on other stuff thanks to the class feature variants Unearthed Arcana. Imbuing Touch makes a weapon magical for a minute without any concentration, in case you want to mix it up and concentrate on a spell that isn't a magic weapon. Empowered Reserves lets you give yourself advantage on a skill check, and Sorcerous Fortitude lets you give yourself a d4 of temporary HP for every sorcery point you spend if you need a little extra health sauce. For this level spell, Sleep lets you roll 5d8 and put that amount of HP to sleep, starting with the lowest HP and then moving up. This is one of the first spells you get from Maleficent, who totally would have been your patron. Speaking of, do you want to be my patron? You can join my Patreon by clicking the link in the corner of the video. I'd really appreciate it, thank you. 3rd level sorcerers get meta magic, letting you augment your spells with sorcery points. Quicken Spell lets you cast a spell that normally takes an action as a bonus action, which means that you could tremor and then still make 2 attacks on a prone creature for double advantage. Basically, we're going to be using all of our spells to make your physical attacks better. Extended Spell doubles the spell's duration, useful for bumps like Jump and Magic Weapon. For this level spell, Enlarge Reduce would let you cast Mini, letting you reduce the size of an enemy, giving them disadvantage on strength checks and saves, and a d4 penalty to their attack if they fail a Constitution saving throw. You could also do the opposite by enlarging them, and really, if you think about it from a relativity standpoint, Big Terra makes everything else small. Something to think about. As a Shadow Sorcerer, you can also cast Darkness with 2 sorcery points, filling a 15-foot radius sphere with darkness that even dark vision can't see through. Except for yours, if you cast it with your sorcery points. Use the darkness to beat the darkness. 4th level sorcerers get an ability score improvement. As a sorcerer, you should obviously cap off your strength modifier to hit things as hard as you can with your big sword. Classic sorcerer move. For this level spell, Shatter forces a Constitution saving throw on creatures in a 10-foot radius, dealing 3d8 thunder damage to those that fail and half as much to those that succeed. It works really well to blow up a wall, the ground, or really anything else you want blown up. 5th level sorcerers can learn 3rd level spells. Melf's Minute Meteors summon 6 floating meteors that you can rain down with a bonus action, dealing 2d6 fire damage to creatures that fail a dexterity saving throw in a 5-foot radius each. We're not going to go far enough into Sorcerer to get a full-on meteor swarm, but dropping some meteors as a bonus action after smacking people with your Keyblade is still pretty sick. Back over to Paladin now. 6th level Paladins got Aura of Protection, giving creatures within 10 feet of you a bonus to all their saving throws equal to your Charisma modifier. That includes you because you tend to be within 10 feet of yourself, at least until you get Norded. Spoilers. 7th level Oathbreakers get Aura of Hate, adding your Charisma modifier to the damage of melee attacks from undead and fiends within 10 feet of you that are on your team, and yourself as well, so your Keyblade just hits a little bit harder than everyone else's. 8th level Paladins get another ability score improvement. Remember last level when we got to add our Charisma modifier to the damage of our attacks? Let's get more damage by investing in our Charisma modifier. Lord knows we don't need the wisdom. 9th level Paladins get 3rd level spells. Elemental Weapon makes a weapon magical, gives you +1 to attack rolls, and you can add a d4 of acid, cold, fire, lightning, or thunder damage to your damage rolls. If you want to cast a 5th level version of this, it's +2 to the attack rolls and 2d4 of the damage type you like. Firestorm, Diamond Dust, and Thunderbolt are a go, and that attack roll bonus can help you land your great weapon master hits too. 10th level Paladins get Aura of Courage, making allies within 10 feet of you immune to being frightened. You can blow through a boss's health bar in seconds and heal your team. Why would anyone be afraid? 11th level Paladins get Improved Divine Smite, letting you add a d8 of radiant damage to every single attack you make, and then you can still add more smites for bigger hits. 12th level Paladins get our last ability score improvement. Let's get our Charisma as high as possible to dunk on everyone as hard as possible. 13th level Paladins get 4th level spells. Death Ward will give you another version of Once More, meaning the first time that you would die in 8 hours, you drop to 1 HP instead. Would this actually be Second Wind? I honestly never understood what the difference was between those two abilities. 14th level Paladins get Cleansing Touch, letting you remove an effect from a spell on a creature you touch an amount of times per day equal to your Charisma modifier. They do have to be a willing creature, so use it on your friends, all of them that you hang out with. Ventus, Aqua, Stitch. Our capstone is the 15th level of Oathbreaker Paladin for supernatural resistances, giving you resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage, which is gonna kinda make up for the fact that we couldn't invest in our constitution as much as I would have liked to. There's limits to ability score improvements. What do you want me to do? Make everyone a fighter? Now that we've hit level 20, let's figure out how viable this build is. First, let's add up the damage you're dealing, thanks to Extra Attack, Great Weapon Master, Elemental Weapon, Divine Smite, and Improved Divine Smite. 4d6 plus 38 slashing, 12d8 radiant, and 4d4 elemental damage. With middling damage rolls, that's still around 98 total damage, and you still have +6 to hit with all those attacks, so it should be doable. Thanks to your sorcerer levels, you also have more spell slots to use for more divine smites. Finally, you're really hard to affect with saving throws, with your lowest saving throw being your wisdom at +3. For weaknesses, your range is limited. Flying things could be annoying, just like those birds in Radiant Garden. Oh, those things are annoying. Your skills are also not great, even if your saves are, because strength is your best stat and it's only associated with one skill. Finally, you had to give up a higher level spell slot for supernatural resistance, which would have let you bump your elemental weapon up another level. It literally took 15 minutes to come up with that last weakness. Paladins are busted and Sorcerer Paladins might be even better. Enjoy the power of darkness and hope that you can eventually get back to the side of the light with your friends. Just watch out for a bird, you do much better on ground of Firma. Thanks for watching. If you like the video, subscribe for more. We make 2 videos every week. Subscribe to Tulak and Mango. We played the first Kingdom Hearts over there, and if you go over there and subscribe, I promise we'll play more Kingdom Hearts once this whole quarantine thing is done.